In part 1 of this review, I didn't really talk about the gameplay. That is because the majority of the gameplay involves interacting with partner. And seeing that I didn't think we would have another partner throughout the game, I neglected to talk about it until the conclusion of the last video. I didn't think there would be multiple weeks, that's why I didn't have a conclusion in the last video, because the story hadn't concluded. What better time to talk about the gameplay than with Joshua's introduction? Not many games can intertwine story and gameplay, it's just hard to intertwine the two, yet The World Ends With You does it so seamlessly you start to get annoyed, like how Neku starts to get annoyed with Joshua. Let me explain. Shiki is really outgoing. She spends most of the week being nice to almost everyone and even befriends introverted Neku by the end of their time together. This explains why she is so easy to control when we fight the noise. All you have to do is click on an enemy and her toy cat shows up to deal some damage. Along with click-only pins, sometimes all I would need to beat a horde of enemies is just to click on them. That's how I defeated the Gourmet Game Master on day 7. I did defeat him on easy, however. Joshua, on the other hand, is annoying. He spends most of his time playing mind games with Neku and has no interest in being his friend. He doesn't even want to finish the daily missions. This translates into his gameplay being harder to control when fighting off the noise. He drops objects on noise and you have to swipe down for him to do anything. And if you swipe down even a tiny bit in the wrong direction, the object will always miss. I hated it.
How's my aim?
Keyword here being hated, as in past tense. While Shiki is a lot easier to play with, her attacks don't give a lot of damage. As in, she has good intentions, but isn't reliable when it comes to a fight. We carried most of the battles we had with her. Honestly, she was only good when it came to group attacks. Joshua is harder to control, but whenever they hit, his attacks deal a lot more damage to the enemy compared to Shiki. And while it does take forever to get group attacks done, they deal way more damage than any Shiki and Neku attack ever dealt together. This tells me that Joshua is reliable, but it's going to take a while to gain his trust. Just thinking about the amount of thought that went into this kind of gameplay, everything in the game is designed to make us feel what Neku is feeling. Whether it's how we feel about our partner, his amnesia in week 1, or the fact that he doesn't like fast food, all of these things are reflected in the gameplay, even Neku's motivation in week 2. We start day 1 of week 2 waking up in the Shibuya crosswalk. My shocked face didn't stop Neku from getting a new partner in the annoying Joshua, who seems to know too much about the Reapers game for someone who just died. I feel like I said this before. Didn't Shiki have the same idea that like she knew more about the game than Neku did, but it was just because Neku was amnesiac? Also, another thought, like, do you have to die at the beginning of the week to be part of the game? Like, if you die on a Tuesday, can you still be part of a game? Or does the game always start on a Monday? And then if you die Tuesday through Sunday, you can't be part of the game just because the game starts on Mondays? Because it's a weekly thing, right? Like, this is a game over a course of a month. So, like, what criteria do you have to pass to get into the game? Like, do you have to die on Monday? I don't know. I just like random thoughts. We are then introduced to the new game master. Being that I took AP Calculus, I understood half of what this guy was saying. His mission statements consist of mathematical equations, and he uses trigonometry and atomic weights to describe people. My favorite line of his is, in parentheses, it's x2 finish parentheses die. The multiplication symbol implies time, and the number 2 implies 2 as in TO, like I'm going to the store. So it's read as it's time to die. There is another meaning of this sentence from a mathematical perspective. Order of operations dictates that anything in the parentheses must be solved first. So, solving the parentheses gives us dies times 2. The times 2 could indicate the fact that the players will die twice, once from real life, and the other death would be from playing the game. I never thought math could be used in this way. You didn't think there would be a math lesson in this video, did you? Neither did I. As shown by the previous example, this character quirk requires a large understanding of math, which I clearly do not have. I just like this character. He makes my year of AP Calculus seem worth it. We find out what happened to Shiki at the end of week 1. She was chosen as the player to be revived. According to who exactly, I'm not sure. I think it's the composer is what he's called. And to meet her again, Neku decided to play the game again. They decide the meeting place to be next to the dog statue where they first met, and Shiki floats away. It was a sweet ending to Shiki's story, from a girl who was insecure about her looks to someone both Neku and the player can admire. Spending a week with Shiki was all it took for Neku to prioritize her over his memories. His entry fee for week 2 was Shiki herself, and now he has to win, because if he doesn't, then they both die. Remember what I said earlier about the gameplay adding to the story? Well, spending many hours of game time with her allowed me to understand her more, as well as care for her as much as Neku does. I now have a stake in week 2's game because I too care about Shiki. If the developers didn't invest so much time and effort into her character, I honestly wouldn't have cared about her well-being in any way, shape, or form. I believe this is well thought out game design. Roaming the streets. I love these names. I love these names for the days. I decided to grind a little bit with Joshua as my partner. Usually, I play the game on a lower level so that the noise can drop more items, so I don't really have to worry about if I have enough money to buy items when I want to pass a wall. You know, for example, one of the Reapers will be like, hey, I want Joshua all dressed in a certain brand, so I go to the brand and I buy all that stuff. I don't have to worry about that because I have the money for it. Being that I was used to Shiki, it was hard to adjust to Joshua, but when I saw how much damage he dealt, I knew I needed to learn how to use him properly, and by the end of my grind, I finally got the hang of him. This lined up perfectly with the story because the barista man tells us more about him, mainly that when Joshua was alive, he could see the Reapers as well as the players. He couldn't handle it really well, and the only person he could talk to about it was the barista man. Maybe this is why Joshua is so heartless. He has been exposed to so much death he could care less about why Neku wants to save Shiki. Him and barista man are clearly planning something, but we don't know anything yet. Yeah, I'm still calling him barista man, but in time I'm gonna just call him Mr. H later on, so don't worry about that. Metaphor time! So, the title of this game makes sense now. Roll credits?
Roll credits.
I'm going to go on a tangent here, so just bear with me. A lot of people don't understand why people are fascinated over certain things. A person who has never played a video game could never understand why people would spend $60 on a game that just came out. A person who has never made clothes could never understand why someone would prick themselves to sew a dress, etc., etc. Different people have different passions, and these passions can take over a person's entire life. We can see their passion as their world, and different people have different worlds that they occupy. And even though people have different passions/worlds from each other, it doesn't stop them from admiring other people's worlds/passions. The way Nico admires Shiki's passion for being a seamstress, or the way the prince enjoys the more authentic ramen shop, are examples of this idea. Barista Man tells us earlier in the day that we should explore our horizons. Neku rightfully asks how he's supposed to explore his horizons in a death game. Barista Man replies by saying, "The world ends with you."
Roll credits.
What you make of the world is what you get. If you are positive, you will see the world in a positive light, and vice versa. If you are open to new worlds and new people, the world will respond in kind. The world really ends with us. These 2 days have so many reveals. It turns out that Joshua may have killed Neku. Mr. H is Kat, the designer that Neku admires and has been going all over the city doing graffiti. And it turns out that Joshua has been alive this entire time. I'm not going to go into the detail about the plot points that happened in these 2 days, as I feel a lot of stuff we did during those days were filler. It was fun, but filler nonetheless. On day 4, we become Detective Conan and find out who stole 777's mic. Him and BJ and Tenho are all in some band, even though they're Reapers. Despite the craziness of this idea and the filler, it's nice to see that the Reapers are not just non-playable characters, but actually characters with their own desires and wills, as if they're a part of their own story. We see this more on day 5 when we get stopped at literally every corner with a boundary Reaper, the ones in the red hoods. While the first wall is a normal hurdle of defeating noise, all the other walls are unique in nature. The first is a questionnaire about the ramen shop from day 3. The second Reaper is hungry and wants us to buy him some ramen. The third is Tenho from the previously mentioned band, who is bored and wants to play a game of Tin Slam with us. It doesn't matter how well we play through the Tin Slam game because Tenho is so bad that he will always lose. He even says later that he's never won a game of Tin Slam. These little quirks allow the game to have a lot of personality. Meeting Tenho again after helping him with his bandmates the previous day and finding out he's bad at Tin Slam makes the player feel like the world of The World Ends With You is sprawling with characters that aren't just there to be obstacles and NPCs, but alive, and you feel like this is a world that exists in real life. And while the reveals were surprising, they elaborate on just how crazy our partner might be. If Joshua did kill Neku to be his partner in the game and risked his own life to participate in this death game, it tells us one of two things. Joshua is either crazy or extremely driven. I come to these conclusions based on all the dialogue we have had with him over the course of the week. He has repeatedly told us that he was extremely bored in the real ground and admired the game from afar, but he has also shown us how intelligent he is, teaching us about the history of Shibuya as well as solving who stole the mic on day 4. Is Joshua being heroic and hunting down the composer to take down this very, very horrible game? Or did his boredom make him commit murder just to add another challenge to his otherwise boring life? Whatever the answer is, I'm definitely excited to find out. Here's a crazy theory that I'm just gonna put out there. I'm putting up my metal hat. Mr. H is the composer. Maybe. I'm not sure. But we'll see what happens. This day shows us Neku's development as a character. Early in the week, we met 2 other players who are kind to Neku and Joshua. They hear Neku's predicament and hope that he can get Shiki back. They also give us a pin. When these 2 players die on day 6, it hurts a lot more than it should. We met these 2 like maybe 3 times throughout the whole game, and yet we care about them like everyone else this game gives some attention to. The high school friends who had an argument when we were with Shiki, the ramen shop owner, we even end up caring about the Reapers. This game gives them all enough time to shine and teach us all the lessons that Neku has been learning. By expanding our horizons and interacting with people that we don't understand or don't really know, that's when we enjoy the best moments in life, even with strangers we barely know.
I blew it. What?
Joshua didn't kill Neku, but he and the math guy are definitely planning something. My favorite character is definitely the Grim Heaper. The math jokes, they kill me. I never thought in a million years my AP Calculus class would ever come in handy. I might make a video explaining all the math references. I might. But for now, Joshua sacrificed his life for Neku to have another chance at the game. I knew him being a crazy person was just a red herring, but did he really have to die for that to be dispelled? Joshua was a fun character to play with. He got stronger on the last 2 days, dropping rays of light instead of objects, giving us angelic symbolism, like he's gonna save us from damnation. Joshua is definitely not dead. His dynamic with Neku was fun as well. It's like they were playing tug of war with every decision they had to make, as they had to work together to achieve both of their extremely opposing goals. There was even a day where they played tin pins to decide who to follow that day. Joshua's cockiness made him annoying, but his intelligence and his charm more than made up for that. While Shiki may have opened up Neku's world, Joshua made Neku realize that his world isn't the only one that exists. Joshua taught Neku that everyone risks their lives every day to achieve their dreams. And that's why Neku is the only player in week 3. His entry fee, being the things he cares about the most, changes. And the thing he cares about the most this time round is the other players. We will continue this analysis of The World Ends With You in part 3 of this review. See you in week 3 with B